Senator Driscoll. Senator Guru.
Here.
Senator Larson.
Here.
Senator French. Representative Alleman. Representative Angeles.
Here.
Representative Harrelson.
Here.
Representative Pendergraft. Representative Sherwood.
Here.
Representative Smith.
Here.
Co-chairman Salazar.
Here.
Chairman Bear.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Do we have a tech here to help us with the reverberation? I love the sound, but it's going to get obnoxious over time.
Somebody has a laptop. Somebody has a laptop that has.
Okay, if you're on Zoom here in the meeting, sounds like we got it. Somebody figured it out. Thank you very much. All right, the next item on the agenda is remarks. I have not prepared any remarks, but that's never held me back. So I'll just begin by just saying that yesterday was, I feel, a very productive day. I think our next meeting, which is in, is it October or November? October. So our next meeting in October, we should begin bringing forth some legislation to address the wildfire mitigation and the wildfire funding. But we have behaved as a task force to date, and the work will culminate, I believe, in some legislation that will change the way the state of Wyoming addresses wildfires into the future. Unfortunately, this is a problem that has gained a lot of traction and is affecting more and more lives in the state of Wyoming. So I appreciate all the work of this committee. I appreciate all the work of those people who have come and testified. I hope that the public can become more involved in this. Unfortunately, most of the public that is being impacted by this right now are out there trying to fight the fires themselves and save their homes. So with that, we're going to continue on to the next two items today. First, we're going to be addressing sales tax and direct distribution. So during the previous session, there was a bill brought by one of the new members of this committee. And that bill was to change the distribution of sales tax from a place where we've been going for several decades in the state of Wyoming, the split between the state and local governments. And the idea would be to give the local governments a more generous position on sales tax. But in exchange for that, we would like to, as a committee, look at the direct distribution, something that's voted on every 2 years for the biennium. And this direct distribution began as a replacement for sales tax on groceries. And over time, we've gone away. We've been without grocery tax for some time, and yet we still have this direct distribution. And I think there's a lot of angst amongst all of our local governments as to what will the legislature do next in direct distribution. So this will create a little more reliability and confidence in our local governments as to what they should expect for revenues so that they can budget appropriately. So I think it's a good measure for us to move forward, and we are taking our time to make sure we do it right, because I do believe that whatever this committee comes up with, if it is passed by the greater body, will be something that stands for decades to come. We had a little bit of fun in the last meeting talking about the Madden formula and whether we should change the name if we change the formula. But I think the committee has fallen on the success of the Madden formula, and we probably won't be changing that. And then we'll finish up the day, hopefully early, talking about the DD waiver. Yesterday, we took a tour of a facility that is providing great services for the citizens of Wyoming. And we want to ensure that as we make decisions on what the state does with the revenue that the good people of Wyoming provide to us is as beneficial as possible to the people of Wyoming. So we're going to work very hard on that program as well, make sure it's well thought out, well funded, and successful for the people of Wyoming. So with that, Co-Chair, do you have any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. But it's my understanding that we will take no action today on any of these matters. We're simply going to hear testimony, explore these ideas, but no action, at least today. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll reiterate that as well. We as a committee, have an advantage over other committees in that we have some very extensive meetings coming up in December and January to prepare the budget, and we'll carve out a small amount of time to finish these three tasks up as far as our review of the work of our committee or our staff in creating bills to address these situations. So because we have that extra time, this third meeting will be to continue to gather the information, and this committee will not take action on those three items today as far as drafting legislation. Okay. Thank you for helping me clear that up, Co-Chair. And with that, I think we're ready to begin. And we're going to start with sales tax. So we're going to have our staff come forward, our fiscal administrator, Mr. Richards, if you would take us down the path of the sales tax distribution as well as the local distribution, local government distribution that we've been doing over some time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Don Richards. I'm the LSO Budget Fiscal Administrator, and I appeared before you at your June meeting in Gillette, and I thought I'd give you a little bit of a recap as well as respond to the directive which this committee set forth at the end of the June meeting. The topic is your priority number 2 for this interim, sales and use tax and local government direct distribution model. Recall from the June meeting in Gillette, we provided an overview of the history of that model, as well as the components, and those were population, sales and use tax collection in each municipality or county, and assessed value. Those are the three main drivers. In order to frame the forthcoming discussion, and others on the agenda will undoubtedly supplement this, recall that in the June meeting in Gillette, that local governments through the direct distribution receive $146.25 million per biennium, or more specifically, $73.125 million per year. So let's just call that $73 million per year through their local government direct distribution. It occurs in a separate bill every biennium, so it is subject to political discussion and amendment. Before, in the June meeting, WAM and the Wyoming Association of Municipalities, and WCCA, the Wyoming County Commissioners Association, presented a proposal, and they requested 8%, which is roughly $77 million per year, from the normal sales and use tax general collection. Their proposal would codify, meaning put that amount in statute in the green books, and it would not be subject to biennial appropriation of the legislature. In short, it would take the split, which is currently 69% of the statewide 4% sales tax, which goes to the general fund, 31% to local governments. It would add 8% to local governments. So the new split would be 61% to the general fund and 39% to local governments. That's $77 million is modestly more than the current appropriation, but it is the closest full rounded percentage figure. And I think we certainly worked with the proposers of that to come up with a rough amount for that percentage. There are some outcomes of this policy. First of all, the amount would not be subject to appropriation and would provide more certainty for local governments in terms of their planning. Sales and use taxes inherently are tied to inflation, although not always. Doing this would tie local governments to the rise and fall of the state's economy. In general, that is tracks inflation on the upslide, but I believe 6 times in the last 25 years, we have had year-over-year declines in statewide collection. On the other hand, one might argue that this is one form of re-earmarking and removing the legislature from the oversight of this policy. Should you wish to move forward with this policy or some variation thereof, the committee did not request a bill draft, but JAC directed LSO and the comparative parties to work on the administrative details. There are some timing issues. As such, LSO met with the Department of Revenue and OSLI staff, both of which are involved in the current direct distribution or Madden formula. And subsequent to that meeting, we collectively met Department of Revenue, OSLI, Office of State Lands and Investments, LSO, as well as representatives from the County Commissioners Association and the Association of Municipalities. And we discussed how this might actually work in terms of legislation. We considered multiple options because there is a transition period. For example, we contemplated an upfront appropriation. We had contemplated going without a direct distribution for 1 year, just to align those timelines. All of those kind of did not work out for one party or the other. And so I think collectively we came to a couple of conclusions. Considering the co-chairman's remarks this morning and no current directive to change the Madden formula, I think the group decided that the best way would be to transfer the 8% or whatever amount you determine from the Department of Revenue, who is collecting this tax, to the Office of State Lands once per year. This is very similar to House Bill 33, which you adopted last year, 2025, which moves all of the sales and use taxes collected on vehicles, trailers, to the Department of Transportation. The reason behind this is it doesn't require any new programming. You don't have any fees for IT changes in the Department of Revenue's tax collection system. So it saves a fair bit of money in that regard. Secondly, the Office of State Lands is well familiar with the distribution under the Madden formula. They already have that. So the collection proposed would remain with the Department of Revenue. The distribution to local governments would remain with the Office of State Lands. We still have a timing issue, and the conclusion of this group was to use the prior year amounts. So more specifically, the first year, if you choose to do something on this, will be fiscal year 27. Those amounts would be based on fiscal year 26 collections. And because of that, and because of our accrual accounting, currently local governments, cities, towns, and counties receive payments in August 15th and a second payment in January of 15th. That schedule does not quite work because we don't know how much money is collected from the prior year. So this group suggested payments would be made to local governments on October 15th and subsequently March 15th. So it's 2 months shift. They are still arguably receiving funds before the cash is available to support those. But I think the local governments and the state are both comfortable with that distribution schedule of October 15th and March 15th. It's a slight shift of a couple of months, and the amounts would be based off of the prior fiscal years using actual data. I think that concludes my remarks on that directive, but I did want to at least draw your attention to a July 22nd memo, which you had also requested meeting follow-up regarding the sales and use tax exemption. At the time the sales and use tax exemption was put in place in 2006, LSO estimated that total impact was about $49 million. That is I think arguably a little bit better estimate than we have now, because we were actually collecting food taxes at the time. Now there were several assumptions within that, because convenience stores, large box stores sell a combination of both food and non-food items, and we did need to make some estimates at the time, but let's call that around $49 million. We no longer, as a state, are collecting that food tax, and nor is any of those retail establishments reporting on the amount of food they sell. As a result, we have to use some other methodology to estimate that. And consistent with our other sales taxes, for example, proposals to tax services, we use a similar state, South Dakota to our immediate east, adjust that for population and made an estimate of the food tax foregone by the state of Wyoming is around $68 million today. There are some concerns with using South Dakota's population because undoubtedly Wyoming has a larger amount of tourism from Yellowstone Park and other areas, so it may not be a perfect estimate. Nonetheless, I think it is a valuable exercise to go to estimate how much money is being foregone from the food tax. One final point before I conclude my remarks on that food tax, and it's important to, I think, reassert this, that the direct distribution was not made as a replacement for the food tax. And how can I say that with certainty is the direct distribution started 2.5 years before the food tax was repealed. So it couldn't possibly have anticipated what could have occurred in the future. Nonetheless, there was no question that in that budget bill, and it was actually a budget amendment, not a standalone bill that repealed the food tax, there was funding in support of local governments at that time just for the food tax, but that was a separate appropriation from the traditional direct distribution. So those two concepts are often conflated, but they really happened at two different sessions on two different approaches. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to certainly be corrected by my colleagues who served on our kind of administrative review for the task force to come up with a proposal that would meet your needs or respond to any questions of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. I do have a question. Thank you for correcting my comment regarding the purpose of the direct distribution. But I guess since you've brought up this this new information to me that this took place a couple of years before the repeal of the grocery tax. So what was the motivation of the legislature when they began the direct distribution?
Yes, and I staffed the select committee on DR marking for its first 2 years. And the third year, unfortunately, I left the employ of the LSO and went back to graduate school. So I did not staff it in the third year, but I can speak to what I understand the history of that was. During de-earmarking, local governments, cities and towns were capped at the amount of mineral revenue that they could receive. And that's the severance tax cap of 155 million and the FMR cap of 200 million. And that was part of the negotiation. My recollection is that local governments wanted certainty. And in order to get that certainty, the state took all of the risk. We enjoyed the highs, and we also bore all of the low oil prices, low natural gas prices, and the like. And local governments since 2001 have received the same amount of severance taxes and FMRs. There were some trade-offs with that because it's been 25 years now, 24 years, and there has been no inflation adjustment. That amount that they receive in mineral royalties is fixed. On the other hand, they did not bear any of the downturn when we did have declines such as 2016, where I would note that that was the largest decline in the state's revenue, more than the Great Recession, more than COVID, was the decline in mineral production and prices in 2016. And the state bore 100% of that. At that same time, during de-earmarking, there was a provision that was still in statute, and actually it was part of the bill that repealed the budget reserve account last year, but that language remains in statute, and it essentially says that any entity that receives mineral revenue, which would include cities, towns, counties, YDOT, the university, the water accounts, could benefit from any excess revenues in the BRA account from mineral revenues. So when prices were high, 2008, 2009, all of those entities were specifically called out and said, you have an opportunity to share in those through a process, through the governor's recommendation and the legislative action. And I would argue that that was really the outgrowth of the direct distribution model, because the very next year we had increase in coal bed methane in the early 2000s. Then we had the Jonah discovery, then the Pinedale anticline discovery, then the $145 oil prices of 2008. And all of those years, local governments came forward and requested, and I would argue they weren't the only ones. You will recall during that same period, YDOT received appropriations ranging from around 50 million to 100 million, arguably from this increased mineral revenue of the state. Because they were all capped under the severance tax and FMR distribution, they had another avenue to come forward and say, hey, revenues are strong, we should benefit as well.
Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Don. You were talking about the directive and about distribution and how that would work. Could you go into a little more depth in that? What I'm looking for here is if it went into that sort of system and you were just going through OSLI, would the board have to vote on those to release those funds, or the legislative directive would be enough to do that? That's how it works now. Just give me a flavor for that, if you could, please.
Mr. Richards.
Senator Guru, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I think I may have not articulated all of the principles associated with that. Let me back up and answer one question before I answer yours, and that is why can't we just distribute it like the 31%, meaning provide the municipalities every month 39%? Well, the reason for that is the Madden formula has multiple prongs. For example, it gives a base amount to all municipalities and counties. It provides amounts for revenue challenge communities, meaning those who don't have the benefit of either mineral wealth or sales tax wealth. So we don't know how much to distribute until the end of the year. And if you gave just 8% and then reconciled everybody at the end of the year, there would be massive reconciliations, and some municipalities may need to pay back the state potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars unexpectedly. So that's why we anticipated using the prior year's amount. After accrual accounting, you would know the amount of money that needs to be distributed, so you know the size of the pie. OSLI could divvy up that pie to the 23 counties and 98 municipalities. To Senator Guru's question specifically, it would be in statute, and it would not require at least as envisioned, it would work exactly like the current Madden distribution, would not require any legislative action, nor would it require any vote by the SLIB board.
Follow up, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, I think that does. I just wanted to make sure that I understood that correctly, that would just become kind of a pro forma along with, because of the legislation itself. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
I have a follow-up, Mr. Richards. Along the same lines, we're going to be basing 1 year's distribution on the previous year's sales tax. So what would happen if it turns out that the following year you had a reduction in sales tax, even though, we're not on a cash basis as a state. So how would we address that, or how do you envision us addressing that?
Great question. And this, the state would continue, and it does now. It serves as the bank of the local governments, meaning we pay ourselves last and we pay local governments arguably before the money has arrived. And I think that's the essence of your question, is you're paying them on, let's say, 2016 or 2026's amount, and 2027 might be 5% lower. We have a recession or something like that. Their 28 payments would then be reduced by that 5% decline. So there would always be a little bit of a catch up under this proposal.
Thank you. Committee, any other questions before we move on? All right. Mr.
No, I
Richards,
see.
please continue. Or are you all done? Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
All right. Well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do
Go
have one
ahead,
last
Senator
question.
Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now that brought up another one. And I know we don't have legislation on the table, but in the presentation that I heard at the last meeting, what the proposal was from WHAM and from the counties was to do it differently than we did it before. That they wanted to ride the wave with us. That their concept legislation rode that and did not adjust or did not get a fixed amount. That it was willing to adjust with the highs and lows that come what may. Is that the way you understood that, Don?
Mr. Richards.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Guru, yes. The local governments would take part in the highs, and let's say we have remarkable growth in your community from tourism in 1 year, and it would generate, say, a 10% increase in sales and use taxes. They would benefit from that 10% increase. And then the subsequent year, let's say there was unfortunately a decline, they would also benefit in the declines. So it would be a fixed percentage. The amount would adjust based on that percentage, but it would be arguably a year delayed. So they would always be a little bit behind the curve.
I think that was, pointed out that the Madden formula is very complicated, but everybody seems to be satisfied with the outcome of the Madden formula. So we have to give time to get the math right. And I think this is why I was motivated to delay the Senate File 60 last year, because this is a very complicated issue and we want to take the time to get it right. This is going to, whatever the outcome, if we do make a change, is going to last for decades. So I appreciate the committee's willingness to take the time and get it right. Thank you, Mr. Richards. And next we have from the Department of Revenue, the newly appointed Director Fanning. Welcome and congratulations on your appointment.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Brett Fanning, for the first time before you, the Director of the Department of Revenue. So thank you so much. And Mr. Chairman, I will keep my comments brief because I do think that Mr. Richards did an outstanding job of outlining some of the points that were discussed in that administrative working group. The one comment that I just wanted to make sure I highlighted was, so the direct distribution that happens per the legislative bill every biennium, those are funds that were collected via the Department of Revenue. So the 69% of the statewide 4% and then sent to the general fund. That's essentially where the Department of Revenue's participation in that direct distribution really ends. And so with the proposal that was discussed during the administrative working group was to keep that the same. As was mentioned, that means no additional IT programming through the Department of Revenue. Now, I know there were other discussions primarily in the June working group at the June meeting as well to maybe change that. But allowing in the 69% to continue as it is, and then language in a potential proposal or draft bill to carve out 8% or whichever percentage this body would deem necessary, eliminates any additional programming from the Department of Revenue perspective. Because we did discuss trying to program somehow, some way, again, considering timing differences, trying to get that additional 8% into our normal local distribution that happens every single night. Every single night. We just distribute monthly, but that actually happens every single day. But allowing the Department of Revenue to keep the same formula in statute and then transferring it to the general fund so OSLI can do their amazing calculation that reduces or eliminates any IT programming from the Department of Revenue's stance. So, and with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you, Director. Any questions for the Director? Okay, thank you for being here. We appreciate that. And you're keeping us on schedule, so appreciate that as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr.
Please
Chairman.
stand by. There may be further follow-up questions as we move forward.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, next we have, and she should be online, Director Barry from OSLI.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Welcome,
Good
Director
morning.
Barry.
Thank you. Good morning,
Good morning.
committee.
Welcome.
This morning, I'm here in a capacity to answer any questions you might have for OSLI. Our role is the calculation and distribution. So we've participated in the working groups and appreciate being able to offer input. But as long as the frequency of twice a year stays the same, we, much like the Department of Revenue, are in a position to continue to do the work that we have been doing in those distributions, regardless of if it is August and January or October and March, but happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
We have questions on the committee for the Director of OSLI, Director Barry. Director Barry, I have a question. I know you're new to this position, so you may not have had an opportunity. I'm just trying to think about your arrival and the latest distribution, but have you been involved with one of these calculations yet where you're going through the Madden formula?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for your question. You are correct. I'm new in this role, and so no, I have not yet had the opportunity to participate in that calculation, but have had multiple conversations with our staff about what the workload is that takes to complete it. And as mentioned, it's quite the formula, but they seem to have it down to a science and are able to complete it in their regular interval.
Thank you for that. Since you have talked to your staff about this, do you have an idea what the time frame is once they have all the raw data to go ahead and get the calculation completed so that they can get the checks sent out to the local governments?
I believe they have a couple of weeks that they have between the time that they get figures from the Department of Revenue and then do their calculation. One thing that was interesting to me in hearing about software for other agencies and their process and how it's calculated. They do all of their entries after the formula has been completed for each locality. Then it is a manual entry for each of those 23 counties and 99 municipalities after that's completed. But my understanding is they have a couple of weeks to complete their calculations to make sure they're correct.
Director Barry, that brings up a follow-up question that I have for you, and you may not be able to answer this. If you aren't, we'd love to hear at a later date. But since this is a manual calculation and a manual process, have we run into problems where we had to go back and make adjustments in the past that you're familiar with?
Mr. Chairman, good question. And due to my newness in the role and admittedly some of the new employees in that space, I don't have good historical information to give you on that. The leader of the division that runs that calculation has been in her role for about 1.5 years, and the budget manager in that space for about 5 months. So we're working with a lot of new personnel in this space.
Thank you for that information. I am going to ask you to help the committee out just to grasp, what has happened in the past. If there's been an error, what was the impact on those local governments? It will kind of give us a guidance on how we would deal with some of these other issues, since we're going to be using the prior year's collections to determine, the future. It seems like it's pretty straightforward on what we're adjusting, but I'd like to know if there's been errors that have impacted local communities and how they dealt with that in the past. So we'd appreciate any information you can gather on us historically on that issue.
Mr. Chairman, happy to do so.
Thank you for being here. Okay, it looks like we have a question from, Mr. Richards, please.
Mr. Chairman, recognizing the director and some of her staff are new to this, maybe just provide a little bit of highlight on both of your queries if acceptable.
Please, Mr. Richards.
As to the first query, the timing for staff to make the calculations, the accrual amounts for sales and use taxes are typically available around the 1st of September. And that would give 2 or 3 weeks for the Office of State Lands, as the director indicated, to make the calculations, and then another couple of weeks to make the payments by October 15th. Arguably, it could be done October 1st, but through the working group, sometimes those accrual numbers are a week late. They might occur after Labor Day. So there is a couple of weeks of cushion in there through those discussions. As to errors and the impacts of those errors, there have been some occasional errors. One in particular occurred actually in fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26's payment. And it occurred only on the municipal side with respect to Fort Laramie and Franny. And those of you who might be familiar with Franny know that a portion of that community is in Bighorn County and a portion of that community is in Park County. Also, you can probably guess that the alphabetizing between Fort Laramie and Park County Free Franny versus Bighorn County Franny, I think, was culpable in that misallocation. I believe a payment was made roughly $66,000 too much to one of those communities and $66,000 too light to the other communities. Those communities were notified, and the deduction or the reversal was immediately made in the subsequent year's payment. So it was caught early on and corrected. Rather than ask for a payment back, they just deducted it from the subsequent amount.
Senator Drew.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Donna, this is just something haven't heard this one before, or I haven't heard this one in a while. I've been here in a steady diet that calculations done by paperwork every time, and there's never been a problem with that. But it's nice to hear that it does happen every now and again, and that we catch them and that we pick them up. And so that's gratifying to hear. And I just wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, real quick, to our new director, Barry, I'm glad to see you and thanks for being here. And our other new director in revenue. Big shoes to fill there too, but boy, we're looking forward to working with you as well. And I think as we go through this budget period, it'll be nice to get a chance to get to know you and get to work. So thank you both for being here.
All right. I have some follow-up questions for you, Mr. Richards, but is there any further questions for the Director of OSLI from the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Director, for your attendance. Mr. Richards, thank you for enlightening us on some of the impacts that could happen. I appreciate the 2-week additional time frame, and would ask that, is your recommendation that, or the administrative group's recommendation, that October 15th would be a deadline, whereas the payment, if they're confident it's correct, would be sent out as soon as they're sure that the numbers are right?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and I think the language not later than October 15th would be appropriate. There may be some years where the administrative inner workings could be done quicker than that.
Okay, Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Richards, it's funny, we always tell our kids there's no stupid question. This may be a stupid question, but I need an answer on it. So I understand the 6931 to the 6139 concept of this 8% swing. I understand the dual allocation. I think I've got a pretty good grasp on this. The thing that I'm struggling to understand is we would go from a fixed, where basically the municipalities and counties are not dealing with the swing of our boom and bust economy. And if we were to go to this, they would swing with us. Talk to me about that concept. How were they fixed before? If we were at a 6931, how did they not go with our swings, but now they will be going with our swings by doing that 8% switch? Can you just fill me in on that? Maybe I was not paying attention and didn't catch that the first time.
Mr. Richards.
Representative Harrelson, through you, Mr. Chairman. Oh, actually, a great question. For the 31% distribution to local governments, they have ridden the wave of highs and lows of the state's tax collection. Not only that, but it is based on the local area's collections. So a great example is with Representative Sherwood's district recently. About a year and a half ago, they had a large wind project, and they generated from a lot of sales tax from that. For the sales tax distribution, or the 31%, they benefited from that when the money came in. As Director Fanning indicated, that allocation was made on a daily basis. The monthly distribution to Albany County and Laramie County, they benefited from that increase. That project is now over, and you've dropped down, just as an example, to more consistent sales and use taxes. However, the Madden formula, that $72 million is the fixed portion. And the recommendation now is to move that $72 million from a political decision fixed amount to share in the ups and downs, similar to the 6139, but on a statewide basis, meaning the state's revenues are higher, all municipalities and counties would receive more, not just the communities where the local development is surging.
Follow up.
Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Richards, for that explanation. That makes complete sense now. I was like, I'm just struggling with how that all worked out. And so really the trade-off that they're saying is they would rather it be codified into statute, which would give them, even though they're now coming completely into that swing with us, they would not have to worry about it always coming before the legislature, and in theory, us being a part of their swing and the decisions we make. Am I correct in saying that?
Mr. Richards?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harrelson, that is correct.
And with that, I think this is a good time for, go ahead, Senator Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you will, there'll be a delay of a year on that, I guess. Is that correct?
Mr. Richards?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Larson, you're exactly correct, but just for this 8%. The 31% would still be contemporaneous with the booms and busts of the local government or the local area. But this 8%, which is distributed a little differently, right, to help out the less wealthy counties and the smaller counties, that 8% would be a year delayed.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. I think the committee can see that there's a lot of complexity in what we're doing right now. And again, I'm going to reiterate, this is why during the 2025 session, I felt it prudent to put the brakes on moving forward with Senate File 60 if we were going to do this and really get this right, get the calculation right. And that is also why I invited our next two guests to give some input and help us get the calculation right, because they represent these local governments that we're really, we're talking about their revenues in the future. So I'm going to ask Jeremiah Ryman from WCCA and Ashley Harpsworth. I'm going to just have you both come forward. And again, during the 2025 session, we sat down, talked about Senate File 60 and said, okay, at the time, and I've talked to the bringer of that bill and the co-sponsors to determine what was the purpose of Senate File 60. The purpose at that time for most of those legislators was to give some relief to local governments based on the direction the legislature was going with property tax reductions. We talked about this in our last meeting. The complexity of replacing a property tax with a sales tax was just too much to try to get done in a matter of moments during the legislative process. So I asked these two groups to really put their heads into what is a good solution, and that's what we're working on now. Normally, I would ask that the public comment before these associations, but because of their input on this issue, I'm asking them to come forward now, and then we'll get to public comment after that. So please introduce yourselves and give us your thoughts about where we're at this point in the process.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Ashley Harpstreet. I serve as the Executive Director for Wyoming Association of Municipalities. And my comments are pretty brief about sales tax. Since the inception of the statewide sales tax in the 1930s, where the first distribution points was 50 state and 50 for local government in 1935, the importance of sales and use tax to a local government's financial stability cannot be overstated. Sales tax is defined as a tax on applicable goods and services across Wyoming. Use tax is the sales tax on goods or services purchased outside of Wyoming but used in Wyoming. Wyoming municipalities are very dependent on sales and use tax revenues. We're doing it now, and we're ready to continue to share in the state's economic cycle on a local level.
Thank you. Mr. Ryman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Jeremiah Riemann here on behalf of the Wyoming County Commissioners Association. It's a pleasure to be here. Wanted to start out by thanking Senator Salazar, Chairman Salazar, for participating in part of our congressional tour that we had coming through 4 of your counties here recently. Chairman Bear will be coming to your region this next year. That's part of a 5-year commitment that we had to bring out 15 to 20 congressional staffers a year to a particular region of the state, move them around. And we're going to complete that 5-year cycle, as I said, next year. I expect that the commissioners, based on the success that we've had so far, will be re-upping to continue that program. So I wanted to start there. Senator French, I wanted to thank you for bringing this concept forward. It was really your bill that got my creative juices flowing about how we could crack this code around direct distribution. So appreciate that. I wanted to just quickly go back to what our proposal was. And if you looked at slide 9 of our presentation at your last meeting, we suggest a couple of things. One, keep that 31% just the way it is. Keep the distribution as it currently sits. And then second, we talk about this additional 8% that would be dedicated through the Madden formula. We are very deliberate in choosing the Madden formula. My members are used to that at this point in time. And second, it is to assist those that frankly need it the most through that hardship component that exists in there. If we didn't put it through the Madden formula, we would essentially be rewarding those that already are the great beneficiaries of sales and use tax. So it's really important that we go in that particular direction. As you know, your current distribution on an annual basis is just over $73 million. Mr. Richards was absolutely correct. We just took the closest round figure in terms of percentage, and that's how we got to the 8%. If you want to cut it down to exact percentages, it's just a little under 8%. But that's what we did, is go to the next hole. Why did we think this was an appropriate way to go? First off, it doesn't raise taxes. We don't have to go and look at any of that. Second, it really generally has little impact on the state revenue because you're already taking this from the general fund where your sales and use tax is going and sending it back out to the cities, towns, and counties. As you've heard, we have the potential to benefit from the growth. And we very much respect that there are going to be times where we're going to have less sales and use tax in a particular year. I don't think that's much different than what we see today in terms of your allocation of direct distribution. If you look at those allocations over time, there have been times where you have cut that back. In fact, that's what the 105 represented, was a cutback. And that was a number that was actually lower than the first year of direct distribution back in 2004. So we will, as I mentioned, and others have, benefit from the growth. We will also take part when there are down times. And then finally, it really removes this biennial wrangling about, one, are we going to even get direct distribution? And having to come and have the conversation with you and make sure that that's appropriated. So I think it solves a lot of issues for all of us, and appreciate your consideration. I would just say, if you look at historically where we're at right now, some of you may be saying, is 146 too high? If you actually looked at the trend lines and inflation and go back to that $60 million figure from 2004, we're generally on the trend line where we sit today, based on inflation. So we would ask that you maintain that positioning of the 8% that we've proposed to you. And with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any questions, but appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Riemann, and Ms. Harpstreth. I'm going to open it up to questions from the committee, but I want to just thank you for using words that are music to the ears of this committee, and that is no new taxes and no new spending. So appreciate that. Any questions for the two representatives of our local governments? Senator Larson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Kind of hate to shoot this out there, but do you see a chance of that 8% being changed every year? I mean, that could happen, I would guess. It does worry me that you come back and say, nah, we want 10 now, or we go the other way and we say we want 6.
Mr. Riemann.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, as legislative things can go, sure, you can make that change. Am I coming back? I would have asked for 10% if that's what I was looking for here. I was looking for the number that represented what we are currently receiving, understanding that the projections are that we'll see a little bit more in terms of the revenue if you look at out years. So from my perspective, we don't need to come back to you and ask for more. And I guess my final response, and I don't have the numbers right in front of me or the timeline here, but it's been a long time since you've made any adjustments to the overall distribution of sales and use tax. So it's very infrequent that you even touch this.
Follow up, Senator Larson. Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, and just because I believe I know what you guys are ultimately asking, you're wanting just the stability that comes of saying, hey, we can 5 years down the road know. Obviously, we won't know what the economy of Wyoming is doing, but we can know that our distribution's set, where we might be in a lull or we might be in a rise pending on the economics of Wyoming, but we know that this is what the distribution is going to look like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years down the road, instead of it being a deal of always questioning, could this disappear on us? Am I gathering that correctly?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harrelson, you've hit it on the head. Every 2 years, and frankly, let's back up. Every year, my members are concerned about whether direct distribution is going to be there. If you even go back 5 years ago, I believe, 2020, the governor made a recommendation to reduce direct distribution even further. The House decided not to move that measure, but we faced that threat in a supplemental year. So what we had been counting on was in question. So you've hit it on the head. Senator Larson, I did want to complete the loop. I did find it in Mr. Richards' memo from the last meeting. It's on page 3. The last time you changed the distribution of sales and use tax was in 2004, so 21 years ago. So if that's any demonstration how infrequently you change that law, there it is.
I'm going to make a comment on that as well. I wanted to do so after Senator Larson. I mean, in my opening comments, I talked about how it's decades that whatever this body does now on this issue or, this year in this upcoming session, it's likely to last for decades. So that's why we really want to get it right. I will say that, this is a conservative body right now. And when it comes to spending and distribution is can be looked at as spending from the state perspective. We're going to be very cautious to get it a conservative solution as to what this is going to look like. And so we've heard a proposal, and eventually we'll get to the point where we're debating about what that percentage should be. So we'll have an opportunity to do that before we present legislation to the body. Senator French. And by the way, I haven't had an opportunity to publicly welcome you to the committee. So welcome to the committee, Senator French.
Well, thank you. The committee's been very kind to me, so I do appreciate that. Welcome. Just to comment, on this direct distribution, who is the state? Who's the state? It's the cities, towns, and counties. They collect the sales tax, they send it down, and then they get not what they should get back. They're generating it through new business, advertising in their community, whatever. They are the state. It's their money. So I think we need to keep that in mind. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that comment, Senator French. And I too appreciate Senate File 60. And that's why we're taking it further into this interim and making it a topic of great interest. What I do like is that we're working together with those local governments. It's not a us versus them in this situation. I think if we come up with a good solution, it'll be a win-win for all government in the state of Wyoming. So let's get this right. Thank you. Okay. Representative Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So one more thing, Mr. Riemann, you made the comment that you wanted to continue to see the distribution continue as it was in basically the 31%. Talk to me about the August, October. Is that going to be a concern? August, March, or August, January, October, March. Talk to us about that 2-month offset on distribution. Is that something where your members are going, this is going to be problematic in our budgets? Can you talk to that?
Ms. Riemann and Ms. Harpsworth, if you'd like to opine on this as well, please do so.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman, and she should. And good question. I contacted about a third of the counties and contacted your commissioners, your clerk, and Washakie County, as one example, is the county that is perhaps the most dependent on direct distribution. So I contacted them and big, small, amongst that third of counties, and all of them said, if we had a definitive timeline of that October, March, that's something we can plan around. If we know that's there, we'll just budget accordingly, put finances where they need to be, and we can make that happen. So all of them preferred that option over the other options that we discussed with the administrative working group.
Ms. Harpsworth?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Harrelson, same with our group as well. I was able to canvass, obviously calling 99 is a little tough, but I had canvassed big to small, and it was resounding of the stability of planning to know the timeline and then just knowing that that was going to be a stable income. And just to further the comments and put a fine point on this policy change, this really moves us to a stable tax structure for local governments. And we just very deeply appreciate this consideration.
Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the committee. These are really great questions and I'm enjoying the conversation. I want to make sure that when we start to debate that percentage, that we have all of the sort of considerations top of mind. So we're looking at historically what direct distribution has offered. I think we're on the same page with that, considering inflation. And then are we also considering like the memo here about the loss of revenue to the state and local government for groceries? I just want to make sure as we debate that percentage, like we're thinking about what are we taking into consideration while we debate what that final number is?
Ms. Harpsworth.
Mr. Chairman and Representative, one other thing to consider is we believe one of the catalysts was the reduction in severance tax to local governments as well.
Okay. I think there's a good moment to ask you, Mr. Riemann, to go back to a comment you made in the previous meeting and reiterate it and maybe expand upon it. And that is some of these local governments, and Ms. Harpstreth, if you want to add to this as well from your constituency, there are some, and I think it was probably Washakie, where it's 25% of their revenue that is impacted by this direct distribution. And how it's, well, it wasn't 25%, it was this plus FMRs, I believe, where those two combined were 25% of that community's revenue. What I'd like to hear is, again, the details of that, but also how many of our counties, we have 23, where it's, greater than double-digit percentage of their revenue is at risk every 2 years based on the legislature. And so, a huge portion of their revenue they can't really count on as they budget going forward. And Ms. Harpstreth, if you have any information in regards to your governments as well, that would be helpful just to understand, how solidifying their future revenues is going to have a great impact on these local governments.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Bear. It's a great question. I don't have all of my notes with me, but I think I have talked about this enough through the years that I can work through it. I don't have the counties that are in the double digits, but I will work to get that information for you. But you're correct. Washakie County, approximately 25% of their entire budget, which is just a little over 10 million, I want to say about 13 million off the top of my head per year, comes from three sources. Those are direct distribution, payment in lieu of tax, and secure rural schools. Why are all those important? Well, they're all discretionary programs. One is a discretionary program of the state, direct distribution, and two are discretionary programs of the federal government, PILT, or payment in lieu of taxes, which is there to offset federal lands that exist within a particular county's jurisdiction. And secure rural schools, which was put in place off of the spotted owl and the decrease in timber sales. So trying to replace those revenues. What I will tell you is that PILT, year to year, we've been pretty lucky. It is currently authorized, and we anticipate that it will be authorized this next year. Secure Rural Schools is not. And in fact, if you go into our revenue estimating manual, we as an association put together a document that estimates what a jurisdiction should expect from revenues from various sources. I, for the first time, had to put a 0 in there because I have no confidence that that particular funding source is going to be available. It's a big deal for some counties. Park County is an example. It's north of $1 million that they're at issue for. I don't remember off the top of my head what Washakie County's typical allocation is there. But again, 25% of their entire budget is discretionary, and that is a problem. And you can help to solve, I think, about half of that with this one particular change.
Thank you, Mr. Riemann. Ashley, Ms. Harpstreth, I think I saw you shake your head no, that you wouldn't have this data available. But if that's the case, if you could just commit to bringing that to our next meeting or providing it to the committee prior to, we'd appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, certainly I don't have that much detail with me right now, but I'll work on that for you.
Okay, thank you. Further questions for the associations? Okay, we do appreciate your work on this matter. It is important that we work with our partners in local government, and I think through you, we've accomplished that. I do know that we have at least the local government here. I'm going to put them on the hot seat for a moment, but hopefully we'll hear from them as well, their perspective on this. And we do appreciate your work. Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Okay, we're going to open this up. Well, first of all, we'll go to committee discussion before we go to public comment. I'll just give the committee a moment if there's anything that you'd like to opine upon before we go on to the public. Seeing none, we'll open this up for public comment and,
Mr. Chairman?
okay. Never to be left out, Senator Guru.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. And I too wanted just to make a comment, and you brought it up 3 times as I counted about talking about being conservative and wanting to take the time to get this right. I just want to say, couldn't agree with you more about wanting to get it right. I think that this is an issue that we need to ferret out, and I hope, and I know we will, as we work through this, that we're going to give everyone time, all the stakeholders time, when we do get to a point to work on bill drafts. I know we have more opportunities because we have more meetings, but sometimes those meetings come right around Christmas time, come at tough times for people to weigh in. So I just want to make sure as we've got another meeting in November, I'm really hoping that we get something fleshed out that people can react to. So when we do meet to finalize this, that we can do it. And I do once again laud you for saying that we want to make sure we take the time to get this piece of legislation right. I think we should always do that, but I'm glad we're calling it out in this particular case especially. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Gru. Co-chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chairman. I just want to piggyback on to what Senator Gru said. I think, and obviously the good co-chair, we do need to get this right. And we, between now and the end of the year in December, I'm sure we'll have many discussions, not only amongst ourselves, but with the public and the stakeholders to make sure that we do this right. I think we cannot be in a rush. As the co-chairman said, we do need to get it right. We will. And so I am committed to making sure those discussions occur between now and December. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you. And I'll just close this out by saying that we have a meeting in October where we'll begin the discussion. We'll probably discuss this and vote to move the bill forward sometime in December or January. But also, although this committee has a great deal of influence on the body, it's ultimately going to be the body. And so there's going to be lots of opportunity for our partners in local governments to discuss this with their representatives. And hopefully this is a great opportunity for new representatives and new senators to build a strong relationship with those local governments. So I take your comments to heart, Senator Gru, and appreciate that. I think we're going to have lots of opportunity to do this right. Thank you. Okay, with that, we'll close out public comment. Committee discussion. We'll open up for public comment. Is there anybody online or in the room that would like to comment publicly? Madam Mayor, we really put you in the hot seat, but I want you to feel comfortable here. We really aren't anticipating any facts or figures from you, but because you weren't anticipating giving public comment, but we do appreciate your being here. We appreciate your community and hosting this particular meeting, and we'd like to just hear from your heart what your thoughts are where we're at today.
Thank you. You know, I wasn't prepared, so I don't do really well with this anyway. So, Mr. Chairman and committee members, thank you for having me. I do want to reiterate that we just received $97,000 in our funds, and it will help replace the $84,000 that the town of DuBois has lost in property tax income. The funds will go directly into our general account, and we will use that for our property maintenance. We have our town hall is old. It was built in the 70s. We need some upgrades drastically. We have a community center that's also very old. The heat pumps need to be replaced. I think we have 9 of them at $60,000 each. So that will help at least with some of that repairs to start with. Sidewalks, streets, and we also have our own airport that we get no funds for except through YDOT Aeronautics, FAA, but we do not receive any other funds for our airport. None of these funds will go into our enterprise funds. So we will just use them for our day-to-day operations.
Thank you for that comment. Questions or comments for the Honorable Mayor of Du Bois? Senator Co-Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Madam Mayor, thank you so much. First of all, thank you for hosting us here. I would just cite to the committee and to the public, this is the leadership that we have in our small communities where they're doing the very best they can with the allocated dollars that they have. And one of the things that I want to make sure of, and I'm sure others do, is that we don't want to particularly hurt in any way our small communities because you have the sales tax capacity is small in your area, but I know how important these dollars are for these local small communities and how important it is to you. So again, I thank you for your leadership, your staff's
Thank you.
leadership. I know you're doing the very best you can with the dollars that you're receiving, and just appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Salazar.
Further questions, comments from the committee? I thank you again for being here. I just want to point out to the committee that the town of Du Bois, that direct distribution for the, I guess this would be annual, the biennium is 177,000, but their total sales and use tax, which think about towns and cities, the majority of their revenue comes from sales and use tax versus property taxes. Property taxes, most of it goes to the county. So that's 234,000 for the biennium. So almost half of their total revenues, are at the mercy of the legislature. So it's pretty impactful. And we're getting ready to do something that's going to really help this community out, just to stabilize their revenue stream so that they can budget appropriately. So thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. And I know that your financial advisor is here or
Yes.
for the county. Would you like her to come forward as well?
Yes, I would, please.
Oh, she's shaking her head no. This might require a directive from the executive. I'll let you two figure that out, but we're going to keep public comment open. And while you're deciding, I'll just turn to Ms. Vaughn. Do we have anyone online? Okay. All right. Is there any further comment? Please come forward, introduce yourself. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. It's good to see you today. My name is Kyle Butterfield. I'm the city administrator for the city of Riverton. And I just want to provide brief testimony today that we appreciate that you're looking at this. As it relates to the city of Riverton, direct distribution is very important as we provide core services to our community. We prioritize these funds for infrastructure projects and also to support our law enforcement capabilities. When I look at averages for how our sales tax interacts with also direct distribution revenues, over the last 5 years, the city of Riverton receives roughly $2.6 million in sales and use tax. And in direct distribution in that same 5-year period, fiscal years 20 through fiscal year 24, it's roughly 1.5 million. These funds are very critical. And our operating fund our budget for the general fund for the city of Riverton ranges between 10 and 12 million each year. So you see we are very sales tax dependent. We're very dependent on the direct distribution and have felt very grateful through the years for the allocation received from the legislature. I would like to echo the comments made by Ms. Harpstreet that the stability will greatly benefit the city of Riverton as we plan for future improvements and ensure that we're providing the core services necessary for our community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Butterfield. Questions for Mr. Butterfield? Co-chair.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Cal, thank you so much for being here today. Appreciate it. I especially appreciate the way you make every penny count for the city of Riverton with the revenue, with the distribution that you receive. So I know I would appreciate if you stay in contact with this committee as we go through this process, because I would like to hear how it directly affects Riverton, and we'll keep an open phone call for you and stay in touch. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the room that would like to comment? Okay, please come forward. Thank you for being here. Please introduce yourself to the committee and the public.
My name is Sandy Hoost. I'm the Du Bois Town Clerk and Treasurer. I've been working for the town in the clerk capacity for 12, 13 years, somewhere like that. Just a year now in the treasurer's position. So it's very new to me. I'll get even with her. She's making me come up here. We did, and we thank you for the direct distribution that we just received. That money is instrumental in us continuing to make sure that we don't have people trip on our sidewalks, to make sure that we do have a safe place for our visiting community, our visitors to our community, which you have all been in here in the summer and you've seen what it gets like. But we still have to maintain our infrastructure that is heavily used by our visitors. We have a aging infrastructure, and we're thankful that we do have the resources to be able to maintain our water and our sewer enterprise funds for emergencies. Actually, the governing body just recently declared an emergency for our wastewater treatment plant that was constructed in 2006, and it's failing. What do you do when you can't flush? I mean, seriously, what are you going to do? You're in a town, you got to. So that was deemed, and we're fortunate that we have had the funds to put a way to be able to do that. We're thankful to State Land and Investments. We just got a grant that we finished up a project on to be able to eliminate a water restriction project that had a direct effect in our fire that occurred downtown in 2013. So, you know, while you can manage your funds to be able to meet your needs, you still need to be able to have that reassurance that those funds are going to be there. In an aging community that we have, we need to make sure that our people are being taken care of. We need to make sure, again, and I reiterate, that we don't have sidewalks that will crack and trip people. That's one of the worst things in the world that I can imagine. We have an active senior center. We want to be able to, the town owns that building. So we want to make sure that we have the funds set aside to be able to help. All of this money comes into our general funds to be able to provide the funds to take care of this stuff.
You're doing great.
I really have nothing else to say, but I do appreciate the input and I appreciate the work that you're doing. And it is felt all over Wyoming when we know that we have people in Cheyenne that are actually got our backs.
Thank you. Any comments for the treasurer? Co-chair.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Sandy, I just want to publicly thank you for your commitment to Du Bois. It's been proven year after year. You are a leader of the community, and I just want to thank you for your commitment and always looking out for the people of Du Bois. And I know it's not easy to come up sometimes, especially to the JAC, but thank you for your comments. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. Can I go?
You are free to go out of the hot seat. Thank you very much. Well, you know, the Appropriations Committee never gets enough public comment, in my opinion. So we purposely came to Du Bois to try to improve upon that. It's clear that though the members of this body truly feel that that our work is very, very important. I know that the local governments feel it is very, very important as well. But we're always looking for public input. It's just not that sexy of a budgeting has never been a sexy thing for the public, but we're going to continue to do that hard work, even if it is kind of behind the scenes, because the public is not as interested as we are. But I do appreciate the public comment that we received. And again, Ms. Vaughn, nothing online. Is that right? Okay. All right. So we're a little bit early for our first break. And we also, I think, have completed this particular subject. So we are doing well to get out of here early today. Ms. Vaughn? I'm sorry?
Mr. Chairman, we have
Former legislator, Mr. Sweeney. We have him online. Is that right? Okay. Hopefully I don't regret asking for more public comment. Representative Sweeney, the Honorable Mr. Sweeney.
If he would just turn on his mic and camera, we'll be able to hear from him.
If you could turn on your mic and camera, we'd love to hear from you, Mr. Sweeney.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I'm having technical difficulties with the operator. Good morning, committee, Mr. Chairman and co-chairman. My name's Pat Sweeney. I'm from Casper and actually now on a Casper City Council. Being on this side of things, and I regret I didn't tune in earlier, but the direct distribution is so important when you confine the way we do in the state, the sales tax and the ability for a community to tax itself. Thankfully, we got through a change we made in 19 or 20, maybe 21, with the 6 cent. If a county-wide effort failed, then we were able to be the first community to put through some 6 cent propositions to try to prove to the community how things work. But in regards to direct distribution and in particular, it's so important. It may not seem like a huge amount in people's minds, but I can assure you, small towns like Edgerton and West, it's vitally important to those small communities. And they don't have a grocery store to begin with. Midwest has a very large convenience store and gas stop there with Big D, but they don't have the ability to raise a lot of income. And their mill levy on property tax is not that consequential, you know, in the scheme of things. So I ask, as you're moving through with these things, and Mr. Chairman and co-chair, that we all work together to try to make things work for our communities. And in particular, I'm not discounting large communities, but our smallest are very important to our economies. I'll remind you, and I know Representative Alman knows well how much the Salt Creek oil field meant in the early days to our state as far as income. And it still produces substantially for our county and for the state. So direct distribution continues to be important, sales tax. And if there's other options for communities to be able to tax themselves through fees and services, we're all open to that. But I appreciate it very much for the opportunity to speak and remotely. And boy, if you haven't toured the Military Museum, and if you can get Dan Dan to take you on a personal tour. He is amazing historian and great, great addition to our great state. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Sweeney. We appreciate your coming on and giving us your comments. It's nice to hear from a large community as well. We've heard from several small communities. And any questions or comments for Councilman Sweeney? And congratulations on your new position. All right. No, seeing none, thank you for being here. We appreciate your comments. Okay. We're about to close this public comment up, but I'm going to ask Director Fanning to come forward and share something that he brought to my attention today. And it's not quite on subject, but it is. I think Ms. Harpstreet made some comments in regards to the original purpose of sales tax in our community. And so the director went into the archives, deep into the archives, 1935, and brought out a document that was the original legislative purpose for our sales tax. And I think since we're on this subject, I'd like to have him share that with this body. And then we're going to break early, but we're going to have a longer break than we anticipated. We're going to use some of that time to just discuss amongst ourselves where we're at on this issue. We'll try to make it so that Senator Guru can participate in that discussion. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next subject early. And so this break coming up will take from the end of Mr. Fanning's comments to we'll make it 11. That's probably more time than we need. We'll make it 11 a.m. We'll get started on our final subject at 11 a.m. Okay. Thank you, Director Fanning, for coming forward, and thank you for your deep dive into the archives. If you could just share with this committee what you've brought to show us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So when I was switching offices, I was able to find the original Emergency Sales Tax Act of 1935. And as you can see, it's a very fragile document. And I truly thank my predecessors for keeping and archiving this sort of document. But as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, I do think it's applicable just to the overall general taxation discussion that we're having right now. So if I could, I'd like to just quote it for you, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Thank you, sir. So the primary purpose of this act is to be in effect for a period of 2 years, April 1, 1935 to March 31st, 1937. And again, as we're all discussing here, it was later codified in statute shortly thereafter. The act has for its primary purpose the relief of property tax by meeting directly the demands made by the United States government for funds with which to meet relief purposes, by meeting directly the demands of sorely depleted public school funds, and, if available, the removal of a portion of the burden of state government and institutions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Fanning. Again, appreciate your bringing that forward to us. I think it illustrates a couple of things. One is there's no such thing as a temporary tax. I think that's pretty clear. Appreciate that. And also it points out that there are two purposes for sales tax in the state of Wyoming. One is, property tax, I apologize. One is taking care of our schools and the others are local governments. And so sales tax often plays into that. And as we discussed today, sales tax has a greater distribution to those small towns than it does the property tax side of things. So we really appreciate your work and thank you for bringing that for this body to find or think about. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions or comments on that fine document from 1935? It also illustrates that the problems we see today are not new. Nothing new under the sun, right? All right. Thank you. With that, we'll take a short break and we'll return at 11 a.m. to begin our final subject. Okay. Thank you.